Okay, welcome to another episode of Cast the Dice, a Warhammer podcast. With me today, again, I've got Wayne and Karaman. Say hi, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
And a newcomer today, I got my buddy Rob here. Say hi, Rob.
Hi.
He is a good friend of mine. Competes in a lot more tournaments than I do. Plays a lot more than I do. So his expertise on Age of Sigmar is going to be much appreciated on the show. So thank you for coming on. Um, Today we're going to be talking about Flesh Eater Courts. Wayne, I know this is your army. This is your main Age of Sigmar army. You've been playing them for a while.
That's true.
How you feel about the new book?
Honestly, I like it a lot. I personally felt they were weak before, although apparently the LVO results show otherwise, but in my opinion, they were fairly weak. So, looking at the new book, I think they got a pretty major buff. I think they're not going to be S tier like Legions of Nagash or Daughters of Cain, but I think they're going to be solid A tier.
Okay. Even though they took LVO and a couple other, you know, events recently, you don't think they're going to be S tier?
I don't think so. There's not a lot of gimmicks to it. Like, it's a straightforward army. Just what they have is nasty, but it's not complete gimmick like Daughters or Legions.
Okay. Rob, I know you played against them in a recent event. How'd you feel about them? How'd you feel about the new book?
Um, I felt that a lot of the abilities were pretty strong. Again, I think some of the issues that I ran into were just experience related. Like he said, um, it's fairly straightforward. It's like what most death armies are. Excuse me, a regenerating kind of melee slugfest army. It hits pretty hard. I mean, there's tricks obviously with the big monsters now, but I can definitely see them at the top. I mean, I know that guy Bill out there on the West Coast. I've played with him at a few events. I've seen him, and he's always done consistently very well. So
Okay.
time will tell, since there's so many different directions to go with the army.
Yeah. In your game verse them, I know you haven't versed the book a whole lot because it's relatively new, but do you feel it's on the level of Legions of Nagash, Daughters of Cain, or do you kind of agree with Wayne that it's solid but not nuts? It's just new.
I think that it's a how do I put it? It's, I think it could beat some of those lists honestly, because those rely on just melee hordes, and the army you can build around having extremely strong melee that strikes first.
Okay. Well, yeah. So this is going to be our Flesh Eater Courts episode. It's good that we've got so many people here to talk about them. What I'd like to do first, though, is I'd like to start out with where you guys are at in the hobby, since that's the arguably biggest part of this game. Wayne, what are you doing now, as far as your hobby's concerned?
I am actually going through and assembling 9 more Crypt Flayers. I'm at 6 at the moment, so I'm about halfway done of what I need.
Nice. Is there any certain list you're building towards right now, or are you just kind of building everything you got?
Um, a little of both. I mostly spent my time on horrors before, but this new book sold me on Crypt Flayers. So my idea is going to be a Blister Skin Grand Court, which we will discuss more in depth later, with the Dead Watch Battalion. So basically, a lot of flayers.
Okay.
Almost everything will fly. Anything else I need, I can summon in. And the idea is I'm going to come at you extremely fast.
That sounds pretty badass. It sounds like a playstyle I would like, honestly.
It's
Uh,
one of the things I do like about the new book. It does sort of give you the options based on what you like. You can go ghoul heavy, you can go flayer heavy. There's the monster one for people who like big monsters. You can sort of build in one of 4 directions, which, being a limited army, is pretty much all the bases you have.
yeah. Yeah, we'll obviously get to talk about all that a little bit later because I'm definitely going to want to hear your thoughts on the different directions you're going to want to take your list because it sounds like list building for Flesh Eaters is it's in a pretty fun place right now. Rob, I know you've been working on a whole bunch of stuff as far as the hobby goes. I know you've been showing me some pictures on stuff you've been working on, and it's been looking amazing. Can you explain a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Yep, sure. I've been working on a Fire Slayer army, which I decided to start up for the new year, mostly because, it's always interested me, but they said that the armies from the last edition are going to be getting an update, and they were one of the first Age of Sigmar exclusive battle tomes to come out that didn't exist before. Sylvaneth kind of existed through the Wood Elves and everything before, but anyway, yeah, just kind of doing my own spin on it, more of an Arctic theme instead of a fiery theme. Um, yeah, mostly for the New Year War, so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I know a lot of the pictures you showed me. It's been awesome. You practically can't even tell it's a Fire Slayer at this point. It's got all sorts of Sylvaneth bits on it, skulls. It
Yeah, like
looks
Beastman skulls and Sylvaneth bits.
yeah, it looks like
Also,
something.
blood and natural stones. It's pretty.
It looks like something straight out of Vikings. It's awesome. I love the work you've been doing. Caramon, what have you been up to, man?
Not much about over the last week. Still working on my battle force. I'm kind of trying to stretch it out because I won't be able to get a new box anytime soon. So and I like the building process. Or it's that 20 skinks are a lot to build, and I'm not looking forward to it. Either of the two works.
So you've been mostly working on your Seraphon?
Yeah, I fixed the oracle for my Troglodon, the little cute thing up there. Built another Ripidactyl. Yeah, it's not much. A bit of painting.
Okay.
Calm week.
What's what's the color scheme you're going for with your Seraphon? I've never actually asked you, like how you're painting
Um,
them.
it's fourfold actually because I'm going for kind of an elemental theme.
Okay.
So my warriors, my Saurus are kind of reddish, with the raptors and the cold ones and the Carnosaurus falling in an orange suit. The skinks get a light blue, kind of airy, fast, runny. Croxigor's kind of green, dirty brownish, with the Bastillodon and the Stegodon too. And the Slan, if I eventually get it, will be a dark blue kind of thing. So I got it all covered.
Okay. So yeah, you're going for something very vibrant.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that,
colorful, deep
yeah.
saturated colors.
I think
Yeah.
Seraphon lends itself well to that kind of painting. Normally, I don't know, Rob would agree. Me and him tend to have a pretty similar aesthetic that we tend to go for. We like the very dark, grungy, metallic colors, very a lot of gray scaling. I think Seraphon are one of those armies where I actually would like them better in bright colors. Um, I also kind of feel that way about Tyranids on the 40K side of things, but I still do my best to make them as dark and gritty as possible. I don't really do bright colors very well.
I'm not sure if I showed you, but my Tyranids, their carapace, they're kind of a chameleon paint from Greenstuff World. You know what that was?
Oh, I do. I do. I've heard of those paints. I've been dying to use
I
them.
Yeah, I put this burning gold. It's kind of like a reddish, golden, metallic color
Hmm.
on there. It changes colors in different lights, and it looks awesome.
Oh man, that I wanted that paint for my Alpha Legion, honestly. It'd make my life so much easier.
Maybe.
As far as my hobby progress goes, I've been kind of on a hiatus. I know Wayne knows about this because he's also a Chaos Space Marine player. Um, 40K has always been my main game. Age of Sigmar's kind of been my side hustle, although I've gotten into it a little more now with Skaven. Um, but I'm on a strict hiatus for buying models until the new Chaos Space Marines come out. So really, all I've had to work on was the Skaven boxes I bought, and luckily I got two boxes of Carrion Empire because now it's sold out and nobody knows if it's going to come back or not. I keep hearing different things from different sources, so who knows if any more of those boxes are going to come around. But I finally got pretty much all my Skaven built, and I got a lot secondhand for an absolute steal. So $90 got me like 40 clan rats, 20 storm vermin, 20 gutter runners, a whole bunch of heroes, another warp lightning cannon, and a abomination. I mean, I got a whole bunch of stuff. I can easily make a Skaven army in multiple different directions now, so that's pretty good. As soon as my airbrush comes in tomorrow, because I broke my other one, as soon as my airbrush comes in, I can get to work on basing them and painting them and all that stuff. So that's where I'm at as far as the hobby's concerned. Wayne, I know you're looking forward to Chaos Space Marines too, so
Oh yeah,
me and you both will
9
be.
days.
Yeah, I know. We'll be ready. All
I
right.
hope.
So, Flesh Eater Quartz. The tome's been out for what, 2 weeks now? About. Yeah. So, not too much has gone on. I don't think any major events have really happened since then. I know a lot of smaller events have happened. Most of them probably only recently started even letting you use the book. So, don't have a whole lot to talk about on the competitive end of things as far as the book's impact on the meta quite yet. I mean, I'm sure it's still taking time to kind of take shape, but I was hoping we could talk about the book today overall and your thoughts and where you think its place will be in the meta and how you think it might shake things up. But to a lot of people, the fluff is very important in this game. So, Wayne, as somebody who plays them avidly, what do you think about the fluff in the new book? How do you think that fluff stacks up for Flesh Eater Quartz?
Well, they didn't change a lot, but I'll put it this way. Originally, when I was looking at AOS, I wanted to do Stormcast Eternals like a lot of people. And I ended up reading a blurb about the Flesh Eater Courts. This was the old book. And the bit of the fluff I read 100% sold me on the army. So it's amazing.
What was it? What was it that captured you so much about the book?
It was just the idea that they are completely insane. Like, at the time,
Like
my
you.
brother. Yes, exactly. Well, it's funny because my brother was playing a game called Bloodborne, I think it was.
Hmm.
Uh, Play, PlayStation, I forget. Some video game. Anyways. And we were talking about it once because in the game there was a line, something like, you were killing a monster, and the monster said something like, uh, I don't remember what it was, but it was referring to you, the player, as the monster, even though it looked like the monster and you looked normal. And we started talking, and I'm like, that would be a cool twist if you were really the monster and you saw everybody else as monsters. And now I haven't played the game, so I don't know if that actually is what happened, but that's the vibe the Flesh Eater book gave me. There's a story where the guy is a knight and he's attacking what he perceives as monsters, and then by the very end, you get this twist where he's actually the monster and he's killing, some poor peasant. So it just sold me really cool that they have that sort of idea where they see everybody as monsters when they're really the monster.
That
That's exactly Flesh Eaters.
Yeah, that actually is really really cool. I like that whole I like that idea and I like that twist. I don't know if they have it yet, but do you know if there's any Black Library novels from a Flesh Eater perspective?
No, but they appear in, I want to say it's Lord of Undeath. It's one of the Realm Gate books with Nagash. There's a section where the Stormcast and Nagash visit a Flesh Eater's castle, and there's a pretty good description of how they're feeding them like rotten bones and everything and slop water, and the Stormcast are like, oh, we've taken a vow where we won't eat or drink until we're done of our quest. And the Flesh Eater, he's a count, but he's the Ghoul King, is like, oh, what a noble thing, Sir Knight.
So the how do the Flesh Eater courts kind of interact with the other races of the realms? I know it seems like they almost kind of look up to the Stormcast in some aspects from what I've read.
Uh, Mostly, they seem to. It really depends on the individual player, but by default, they tend to see everybody other than them as being some sort of barbarian or monster. Like they see Stormcast as being brigands, as I like to call them, gold armored barbarians.
That's really funny. Yeah, they're a really cool army fluff wise, especially if you really like to have fun. with your own personal story as you're making an army. You can. I know you named a bunch of your guys at one point.
Yeah, they're all named.
Yeah, you were talking about your army quite a bit in the early days of Age of Sigmar. So that's really cool that it leaves it that open. Uh, Rob, have you poured through any of the fluff for Flesh Eaters at all? I know you're pretty up on the
Not
fluff.
not too much honestly lately, especially since a lot of it just came out. But I read some excerpts. One of them was I think it was a Slaneshi Keeper of Secrets or a Demon Prince or something that was fighting against a Ghoul King, and just the way that the encounter happened was something along the lines where like the Slaneshi person like became one of the Flesh Eaters or fell under the delusion and saw the Archregent of the Ghoul King as some guy in like elaborate robes, and it was really just like flayed skin. Just the way he was talking, I really like that idea where to me the faction is really interesting because it ties together, kind of what happened in the old world and a lot of the humans fell to death and just
Yeah,
how and what's the aftermath. So it's kind of like the post-apocalyptic zombies or something like think of like 28 Days Later.
yeah,
They're zombies or something, but they're more sentient and know what's going on.
yeah. There's a lot of funny interactions that go on there. It's almost like an entire army of people with Alzheimer's. I feel like they just kind of just do their own thing, do a bunch of wacky stuff. Don't really know what's going on, but I mean, the interactions are funny. It's fantastical to a point of absurdity, and I think it suits them very well. Karaman, have you had any experience with Flesh Eater's fluff? Anything that you particularly like about the army, or in those regards?
I remember there was, I think, a short story in the Malign Portents,
Okay.
which had a very similar twist to what Wayne described, in the meaning that there was this guy, he was fighting like humanoid creatures, and he won over them, and then he bludgeoned them, and the twist was that he saw himself reflected in their eyes, and he was the ghoul. Um, so yeah, pretty similar. Um, it's kind of creepy. It really amps up the horror factor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I'm generally not a fan of it, but I see the appeal. It's nice,
Yeah.
twisty, mind fucky a bit. So beyond that, not much. Not a bit of what my friend told me about them, who plays them. Yeah,
I mean, any amount of time spent around Wayne, you would know why he enjoys this so much. I mean, it pretty much suits him.
yeah,
Uh,
clearly.
Me and him both have a pretty dark sense of humor, so it's no small wonder that we both tend to enjoy that fluff. Um, Speaking of, like, I know Rob, you brought up the tie into the old world and everything. What do you guys think about this? The rumor, so to speak, of them being Bretonians.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
Yeah, it's people jump on it. Let me explain. People jump on it, but what they forget is that Age of Sigmar takes place some. I don't even think they've said how long, millennia. So yes, there are some Bretonian elements, like the one of the endless spells has the fleur de lis symbol, and there's the chalice, but it's not so much the Britannia because they've established in the Sigmar fluff that there were many, many human kingdoms between the fall of the world that was and the Age of Chaos. So the way I see it is the Flesh Eaters are the remnants of kingdoms that may have been inspired by something they saw that was a legend of the world that was, the old world, similar to how ancient civilizations in the real world took ideas from civilizations before them and adjusted it. So they're not Britannia, as in the actual Warhammer Fantasy Britannia. They're from some other kingdom that saw it and heard those legends and passed it down.
Exactly.
Okay, so you guys are pretty much in agreement that it's not Bretonia, that it's just loosely inspired by Bretonia, maybe.
Right,
Well,
it's a nod to Britannia, but people get really, really passionate about it being Britannia, almost as
but
much as that recent thing I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, the recent thing in the book about Cetra.
Please don't start it, please. I beg of
Okay,
you.
we'll skip that.
But it's
Or
kind of
I'm
like
I'm really gonna tilt off the face of planet here if you
Oh
start
yeah.
with that shit.
What did you?
because there's no empire. Like it's like Wayne said, there's no empire. The old kingdoms are gone. They've been gone. You know, it's just kind of that. It's just a generic heraldry symbol, and it just has they're nobles. You know, it could be similarly passed down, but the old stuff the old stuff is gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, as much as some people would love Warhammer Fantasy to be tied in, I know we had a perfect example of that when we were at your event. I remember you playing against the first guy you played against, and all I could hear, because I was just a spectator, all I heard was Rob kicking the shit out of this guy, and this guy's just like, oh, Age of Sigmar sucks. It's not fantasy. Fantasy was so much better. Well, fantasy's dead, and you need to either, get with the times or, not
Yeah, or
play.
find somebody to play fantasy
Go
with.
play Kings of War. That's a good game.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of other games to play rather than show up to a tournament with a army that you found in a dumpster outside the event and, expect to do anything relevant and, essentially use the event to try to learn the game, get the shit kicked out of you, and then sit there and complain about the game the whole time. I mean, it's not good for you, it's not good for the event, it's not good for your opponent. I mean, all that stuff is just unproductive. So, that is what it is. Um, this thing about Cetra, though, I know, I know, I know, Caramon, you didn't want to talk about it, but what is this? I don't know what it is. I want to know about it.
All right. I don't even remember which book it was. Do you, Wayne?
It's the new
The
I don't
Hamilcar one. Yeah, Hamilcar
Hamilcar
Barbarian.
Mary, yeah.
Yeah. There is a throwaway line about a Lord Celestant named Cetrus, uh, whose I don't know, either chamber or Stormhost is called the Imperishables,
Doesn't
and
say.
who has a special hatred reserved for the Undying King. You get the
Oh,
parallels, right?
yeah. Huh.
And I'm pissed.
Because Cetra is now serving.
Oh, man. Um, that's interesting. Hmm.
I think it's a good idea. It gives people closure.
Gives
Not
him,
really. I
Makes
would have
sense.
preferred him dead.
gives him closure. That's funny.
And the
Well,
funny thing is, the Tomb Kings are actually mentioned in a throwaway fluff bit in God Beasts, the campaign book. Yeah, there those small timeline thingies. There's a one little tidbit about Dynasty of the Crimson Kings. It's called,
Oh yeah.
who crushed an ogre horde under the chariots and rode home with their skulls attached to them.
Mm,
I like that.
Well,
interesting.
to be fair, I mean, they could release Tomb Kings, just not Cetra.
Yeah.
I suppose, but is it really Tomb Kings without Cetra?
Well, he was
Isn't
fine
it?
cast anyway, right?
I have his model. Yeah, it is.
Well, there you go.
All right. Well, to get back onto Flesh Eater Courts, we could talk about Tomb Kings all day. um, to get back to Flesh Eater Courts, let's dig into the book a little bit. We've got the fluff. Now let's get to the crunch. What do you think about the rules, Wayne? How do you think the book's shaping up rules
I
wise?
think I think they got good buffs. Their feeding frenzy ability, which let me just state what this does here because it is nasty. So basically, they can spend a command point after a friendly Flesh Eater Courts unit has fought in the combat phase for the first time if they're wholly within 12 inches of a hero, or 18 inches if it's the general, they can pile in and attack again.
Wow. That's
Now, unfortunately, you can't pick the same unit to do it more than once, but that means if I'm rolling, the bucket o' dice with a whole bunch of ghouls, let's do that a second time.
yeah. Holy crap. Um, that sounds like something straight out of Corn's playbook. What do you think about the battle traits? Let's talk about those. These overarching abilities for the entire faction.
They have the normal. I mean, they get the deathless minions or deathless courtiers in this case, but same thing. If they're within, actually, it's now changed to wholly within because they're kind of consolidating that, but they get the 6++, ignore any wound if they're by a hero. So nothing new there. There's already the Fleeting Frenzy I already mentioned. So they get delusions like they did before. So basically, your general thinks that they're crusaders or they're going to, hunt a boar or something for a feast. But if you take a Grand Court, you don't get the delusion. So it's kind of, do you want to have the extra bonuses for the Grand Court, or do you want the delusion?
I mean, the Grand Courts do get an additional army bonus, don't they? So I guess
Yes.
they have kind of an inbuilt delusion.
They do. I mean, it's one of those. I personally think you will almost always see a Grand Court. I don't really think there's any reasons why you would see somebody not doing it, but you have the option, at least if none of the Grand Courts appeal to you, or like some of the delusions are nasty. Like there's one, the Feast Day, that Feeding Frenzy ability. Once per turn, you can use it without spending a command point.
That's good. That's really good.
That does seem really good.
Right, but it's a question of whether or not it's worth the Grand Court. I mean, like I said, personally, I feel that it's not, but um, it's up to everyone.
Yeah, it gives you the option to specialize or kind of customize based around the delusion, which is good because the range is actually very limited. You have what, 3 actual units, and then the rest are your heroes or monsters.
Yeah, it's not counting
So,
the monsters. It's 3.
so any type of different playstyle for using the same models is always in my mind a good idea, because that's what I do like, is that instead of throwing in a whole bunch of models or increasing the range to try and get people to play it or come up with new ideas, they have built-in cores that you can specialize. Instead of just instead of throwing tons of units out there, they have the balance.
Just quick intersection here. The Grand Courts do give you a fixed warlord trait and artifact, right?
Correct.
So I see a basis or a case for armies without Grand Court because you can pick the delusion, the warlord trait, and artifacts of your choice instead of having one fixed for you. As opposed where Stormcast you have like two extra things and 2 penalties because you have to give up your warlord trait and artifact. In this case, you have like the option to take 3 of those things instead of getting those 1 extra command ability. So I guess if you really want to go for a nifty little trick out of those, I think you can make a pretty good custom Grand Court if you really wanna.
I would agree. I mean, I think it depends only because 2 of the Grand Courts, and technically the third one, give you extra bonuses. So if you don't do that, then you're stuck with the whole, you need to make the relevant courtier your general to take flayers or horrors battle lines. So it depends on what you want to do. But you're right. I do like that if you were going to take ghouls anyway, and you don't really need the bonus of Morgaunt, which is the ghoul-focused Grand Court, you can pick and choose and make something that works really good without having to worry about it.
What do you think, Rob?
I agree. I think that, like I said, it's basically, it gives you that extra layer of customizing if you really want to, run one trick, or versus, if you take the ghoul-based one, where, hey, with my delusions, I really want to be able to reroll and get bonuses to my charge rolls or my limit charge, versus whatever the built-in Morgan cord is.
Yeah, it definitely seems like it adds a nice layer of customization to your force. Like you could really choose what you want to do with your army, which I think is very important in a game like this that has so much wrapped up in, like, because I know people get personally invested in their armies and the fluff and everything, and it's really nice to be able to kind of mold an army the way you want it to be.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be falling along the same lines as Daughters of Cain, where picking the temple, the benefits of taking it is, in my opinion, can outweigh the benefits of not taking
Now, as somebody who plays them often, Wayne, what kind of direction are you going to go, and what do you see? What do you see as working in the book for you?
Um, well, for me, I like crypt horrors, so I'm going to play with the Hollowmorn Grand Court, but Crypt Flayers got slightly better, and overall now I think they're better. So,
Now,
like
what
I said at the start, I'm sorry?
now what does that Grand Court do?
Hollowmorn is the one that gives you, first of all, you get Flayers as battle line, and Hollowmorn gives you Shattering Charge. You can reroll wound rolls of 1 for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Hollowmorn Courtier units and friendly Hollowmorn Knights, which are Crypt Horrors and Crypt Flayers. Units that have made a charge move in the same turn. So it encourages you to get the charge off, and as I said before, the Hollowmorn Court makes the Crypt Horrors as battle line.
Hmm. So that's perfect for you because I know you like horrors and flares and whatnot a lot. So definitely seems
I
like it
do.
suits your play style.
Right. I think I'm mostly gonna go Blister Skin, which is the one that gives Flayers battle line, because they have their ability is very simple but very nasty. It's literally add 2 inches to the movement of Blister Skin units. So Flayers are going 12 inches, I think. They go a lot.
Well, they originally go 12, I think, so they go
Oh yeah,
14.
they're
So your
14.
slowest, so you're basically your slowest unit flies 14 inches.
How fast? Scenic fast.
Damn. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and the ghouls get it too, because they get the keyword. So ghouls are moving 8 inches.
those are some fast schools.
Yes.
Man.
So
So objective games shouldn't be any problem for you for the most part. You could get wherever you need to go relatively quick, even with ghouls.
yeah, but you
Irish.
also have a lot of guys. And then, of course, I'd have to mention Gristlegore, which is the Monster Mash list. Terrorgeists and Zombie Dragons become battle line.
I think that's the list you played, wasn't it, Rob, in the finals?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what exactly does that
Okay,
one do?
that one.
Do you want me to take it? Because I played against it twice.
Yeah, go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, let me read the ability, because then I'll let you. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by a Gristlegore hero or Gristlegore monster is 6, that attack inflicts 2 hits on that target instead of 1. Make a wound and save roll for each hit.
Hmm.
Yeah, so your zombie dragons, I think they buffed the zombie dragons. I think the royal zombie dragons have like Rend 2 bites, but again, when your monsters do d6 damage per attack, the ability to just trigger more and more is very good. Especially when you couple in any reroll bonuses or anything like that, you're just getting a tons of -2 Rend or more than just getting 1/3.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of synergies and a lot of wombo combos you could kind of throw together with that. Um,
Yeah, but the crazy part about it, in my opinion, is the command ability and the command trigger from your general. I mean, the command ability, let's say just a hero within 12 or 18, that's like the range for all of these Grand Court command abilities, is that when it's removed to die, you can pile and attack it.
oh, geez.
And it's not, well, it has to be in a combat phase though. So, but the tricky thing is that, let's see here, you can't have it more than once, but let's see. But then I think you can synergize that with Feeding Frenzy if that's the first time it's attacked. So if you get one that gets nuked, you can blight when you die for a command point, and then you can blight again for a command point.
Is
That
that
is very.
Wait, so 3 times pile and attack Wow.
Well, yeah, well, I don't. You can do 3 times, but not if you're killed. If you're killed, you can only do twice. The command trait lets you automatically trigger at the start of the combat phase before anyone gets to pick. So your general gets to pile in an attack, then you can Feeding Frenzy it, and then if you die, you can attack with that same model. So potentially 3 times with one. But then again, if it's your turn, your other Bristlecore monsters benefit from it, so you can have them double attack. It's just a lot.
That is nuts. Just plain nuts.
It was pretty nuts. I mean, there was I know in the final game of his event, I mean, the person you were playing had, what was it, two or three of those
They
dragons?
only had two, but they had an artifact on one of them.
Eh,
They put the special artifact on one of the heroes, but then the other artifact you get from choosing the battalion, it increases their piling by 3. So they were piling in pretty far with a big base, and when your mob reaches 3 inches, you can actually kind of jump around. So, like in one situation, you kill one in combat, it piles in and attacks, kills a bunch of things, you activate it again for a command point, and then you lunge 6 inches towards another unit, and then wipe through other things, and
wow.
then it dies.
And what was the? Because I know you were explaining something to me involving a mount trait. What was that?
That was rerolling failed hits for the Maw. So when your Terrorgeist does 3 attacks with the Maw, they hit on 4s, but natural 6s are 6 mortal wounds. So, but then again, natural 6s count as 2 hits. So the mortal wounds are instead. So you still get to make a wound roll with your attack. So say, but the real synergy is that you can easily buff up the amount of attacks with spells and buffs on your Ghoul Kings and Archregents. But anyways, when you're doing like 5 or 6 Maw attacks with rerolls, and you can trigger twice, natural 6s or 6 mortal wounds and count as an additional hit, you get a lot of -2 red d6s going through and a lot of 6 mortal wounds.
Yeah, so essentially you could spend this time running around with the dragon and fishing for those mortal wounds. You can just re-roll and attack 3 times with 5, 6, 7 attacks apiece, and just keep re-rolling until you fish up those 6 mortal wounds a pop, which are exploding at the same time. So,
Yeah, so which is why, in my opinion, it will be hordes.
wow.
Now, I do believe they ruled if you do the 2 hits, it's not double the mortal wounds, it's one and
No,
then another
it's
hit.
instead.
But that's still
But
pretty.
it's still extremely good because you're getting more. You know, when you're wounding on 2s or 2 to 3s, I forget.
Yeah, that's insane. I wish I wish a lot of the newer books that have been coming out haven't been as powerful as they are. It just seems like every book that comes out is getting more and more powerful. Although Skaven just came out, and I don't think Skaven quite reaches that level of uh, wombo combo. But
Depends on the clan largely.
yeah. Um,
It has some extremely strong tricks, but
so within the meta, what kind of impact do you think Flesh Eater Courts are going to have on the meta at large right now?
I think it's going to. The meta right now is very melee dominant. So when you have the ability to, like Wayne said, with Blister Skin to be very fast, and with a battalion with flayers to have hero phase or out of phase attacks, and then piling in again immediately, that's extremely strong, in my opinion. So when you have like a horde of 30 Witch Elves or 30 Greengrass Reapers or anything like that, you're going to be able to just tear into them, multiple times.
Yeah, so do you think the meta is going to shift to a little more to more shooting to keep them off, or do you think it's going to be largely stay the same and Flesh Eater Courts are just playing into the meta at this point?
Well, I think what you're going to have is it's just splitting into even more rock, paper, scissors. Whereas, you're going to build to counter strong melee, or you're going to, I don't know, actually, it's hard to say. I think people are just going to build in more shooting. I think shooting is just going to be more relevant now than being able to run hordes onto objectives and sit there and, automatically win through generation.
Yeah. What do you think, Wayne? Where do you think their place is at?
Um, like I said earlier, I think they're going to be fairly decent. I don't think there's anything that's crazy broken, but I think there's a lot of variety and enough to where I don't think there will be any one go-to list. Personally, I feel it will be either Blister Skin with Flayer Spam, like I want to do, or the Gristlegore Monster Mash list. But those are different enough to where there's not going to be a hard counter, at least none that I see at the moment.
Okay, so you think that essentially it's going to play into the meta pretty well. Um, there are going to be things that it's going to have a hard time against, things that it does well against, but you don't think that the meta is going to necessarily warp around Flesh Eater Courts, much in the way that the 40k meta warps around the Castellan.
I don't think so. I mean, there might be some hidden tech that ends up pushing a shift, but I don't see them doing anything that's so incredibly varied that it's going to force an actual meta change.
Okay. What do you think about the internal balance? Do you think everything within the book is equally viable, or do you think there's like, some stars and some duds?
Definitely stars and duds. I feel that the crypt horrors got the short end of the stick, not so much because they changed, but because they didn't. They stayed the same, and Flayers got a little bit better, and sure, they went up 10 points, but they whoop. So I feel that the horrors in general, their viability dropped just because of what they do and where they fit in.
So there's not really a place for them in the current game state, is what you're saying. Everything they can do, Flayers can do better, essentially.
Pretty much. I mean, the way it goes is so crypt horrors have a good number of attacks, and they do 2 damage a hit, and 6s to wound, I believe. I'm too lazy to look at the book right now. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, they do more damage.
Yeah, they do it's like a third. They do 3 damage if they have a wound of a 6.
Okay.
So the problem is that there's no rend, and they're supposed to be your elite, but they hit on 4s still. So they hit like regular guys. They wound on 3s, but no rend means that they can't get through heavily armored elites because you can't drop their save. They don't have enough attacks to take out huge hordes, at least compared to Ghoul. And the fact that they have only a 5+ save means anything that hits them is going to wound them. So they have 4 wounds each, but you can't deal with elites, you can't deal with hordes, and you can't take the hits from elites because they'll just do damage to you, and you can't take hits from hordes because they'll overwhelm you with attacks. So they don't really, in my opinion, as much as I love horrors, they don't really fit anywhere.
Gotcha.
Can I interject?
Go.
Sure.
I think horrors are good in a way for a couple of reasons. Excuse me, once again, I sip water.
He's got to get ready.
Sorry. No, I think horrors, like you said, they don't have the mortal wound shtick, but in terms of the hordes that are out there now, like ghosts, they ignore rend. Okay, mortal wounds are good, but they have a built-in reroll for the horrors, meaning there's a lot of hit debuffs out there, and it's not uncommon to get hit -2 to your hit rolls, which would make a big impact on a lot of things. But you can reroll any hits, which means it's rerolls before modifiers is kind of unaffected by that. Now the thing is, they do 2 damage per attack, and they have 3 attacks per model, which isn't that bad. That's like what 9. Does a leader get +1 attack? Yeah, he does.
Yes.
So now the other good thing is that in the battle tome, there's a lot of ways to increase the number of attacks that you do. So if you buff them up with the +D3 for the Archregent and +1 from a Ghoul King, and you get 3 extra attacks, that's 6 attacks each, hitting on 4. So say you have 9 horrors kind of spread out that fly into a Death Star, hit into a Death Star, or whatever. You're going to be doing 55, 50-something attacks with rerolls, and 6s to wound are 3 damage, and the ghosts would ignore rend anyway, and the witch elves have 6 up natural save anyway. So I think that you're going to be just pounding out a ton of damage, like potentially dozens and dozens. And I think they're just going to surprise a lot of people, but against certain things like Stormcasts that can kind of cheese out their save rolls, they don't have a way around that, like you said. Certain things with 3+ saves, but you don't run into that a lot to counter it, kind of at top tables with Stormcast. So I think that versus some lists, it's going to be able to wipe hordes really quickly, especially the double activation.
Well, as someone who likes horrors, I hope you're right because I really like them, and I really do want to try them with the Abattoir Battalion.
Yeah, the other reason why I think the horrors are good, it's the same reason the flayers and not going the Crucible route is that the courtiers regenerate whole models, entire models. So if you have, 9 models in a unit, you use 8, and you have 3 courtiers there, you can regenerate like however many back. You roll 6 dice, I think. So you're just going to regenerate 4 wound models over and over. And you can kind of string them along in their big bases to 50, 40 millimeters.
I believe they're 40, yeah.
Yeah, so they're relatively big bases. So long as the units in combat, you can place them um, around, so you kind of get more into base-to-base combat. So it's kind of like you can throw debuffs onto a unit, slam it with your guys, survive the wave, and as long as they don't wipe out 70 wounds of guys, or not 70, as long as they don't wipe out like 40 wounds of your horrors, then you throw Unholy Vitality at them. They get a 5-up on top of their 6-up. So they get a 5-up, feel no pain, and then a 6-up death save. And they're going to stick around and regenerate and just be a pain. It's just to me they're better at clearing hordes than the flayers.
So
I can see that.
instead of looking at horrors and flayers as a either or, couldn't you instead look at them as kind of a hammer and anvil? Have them both together. The horrors kind of stand stuff up, knock stuff down, but the flayers come in and just end things. I mean, what's the wound count on flayers right now?
They're both 4.
Same.
Oh, okay.
Four wounds, a 5-up save.
So they're both pretty tanky and pretty good at what they do. I mean, could you run both to some success?
I don't
Yeah.
think so.
I mean,
To success, no. Because I think just the way that the grand courts are, it favors if you specialize. Of
Okay.
course, you can split it, but if you specialize, you're going to get more synergies to one versus the other. If you're going to be running flayers, you're going to want ghouls as kind of a screen or objective grabbers, and that's just my thought. I mean, again, I'm not a flesh eater courts expert, but just from looking at what they can do, I played against the old horrors. Um, they surprisingly they put out some damage, but my guys were kind of resilient, so they didn't do much.
I do like horrors. I mean, I'm with Wayne on this one. Although honestly, I like all of the Flesh Eater Court models. Um, so flayers I think are cool too. There's really not a lot in that range that I wouldn't want to run if I was to be a Flesh Eater Court player. I don't know, Wayne. You might get your wish, be able to play your horrors.
yeah, I mean, my meta's not extremely competitive, so while I want to do the Flayer spam, and I've wanted to do that for a bit, I do have 9 horrors, and I plan on assembling 3 more so I can run 2 units of 12 with the Abattoir. So I'm definitely going to give it a try.
What battalions do you think are kind of stand out right now with this book? Which ones do you think are going to see a lot of mileage? I know with Age of Sigmar 2.0, a lot of battalions have kind of fallen by the wayside because a lot of them have become too expensive to be worth it. Do you think any of the ones for Flesh Eater Courts will be competitive?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Which ones?
I think Dead Watch, and just because of the benefit it gives for that hero phase activation is
Which
extremely strong in my
what's the
as crit players.
what
I think it's
exactly
down
does
to
it do?
110 points. You pick a unit, I forget the range. There's no range, you just pick a unit from the battalion. And there's no conditions. I think it's just you pick a unit from the
Yeah.
battalion, and it piles in attacks in the hero phase.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty nuts.
In hero phase, 1 unit. It technically got a hit. Before it was everything in the battalion.
Wow.
But yeah, 1 unit from this battalion within 3 inches of an enemy unit can make a pile-in move and then attack with all of its melee weapons it is armed with in your hero phase. So basically, you can do it 3 times with. You get this. You can spend a command point for feeding frenzy, and then you attack normally later with for 1 unit.
Wow. So you can attack what twice before your turn even actually begins?
Yeah.
Well, more or less. I mean,
Yep.
wow. All
Yeah,
right.
I think Bleeding Frenzy's combat phase though.
Uh, Yeah, feeding friends is the combat phase. So yeah,
Okay, so you get the one activation in the hero
yeah.
phase.
It's one
All
in the
right,
hero phase, then you attack normally, and then you use feeding friends to attack again.
so that's a little
And
easier to swallow.
It's still 3 times the attacks you normally would get, so
yeah,
that's
And plus,
horrible.
remember,
especially if you throw the buffs on it.
yeah, I was
Healing
just gonna
part.
say that because
That unit is gonna do horrible things.
flayers are 4 attacks base, and
Mhm.
6 I think 6 to hit mortal wounds. I think 6 to hit or mortal wounds in addition to damage.
Isn't most of your buffs with extra attack spells?
Yep.
In the
So
hero
you can
phase.
pile them on, attack first time in the. Oh god damn
You
it!
get, if you run them and you got good, you could get up to 8 attacks per guy, 3 times.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You sure they're not gonna be high end competitive?
I don't
I mean,
know.
you have to get a lot to do that, though.
They
Wayne
sound
Wayne
broken.
plays Flesh Eater Court, so he's trying really hard not to admit that his army's going to be overpowered cheese because he doesn't want to be that guy. So he's going to sit here and be like, "Oh, they'll be solid A tier, maybe
But
B
he wants to
plus."
be that guy. He wanted to Castle of Knight.
I mean,
Hey, we don't
When
talk
you
about
win,
that.
so when you win, you get to say, "Oh, they're not that good."
they're not
Right,
that good.
exactly.
You
Oh
I
you
Jesus!
think that I think that one's good. I think Ghoul Patrol just is cheap, and
I
if it goes battle
disagree
line,
with Ghoul Patrol.
and if it goes battle line for you throw your Ghoul units in there, and it gets you another artifact. So if you do take, I think Ghoul Patrol's 100. I think it's 110.
I don't know, Wayne. You seem to not agree about Ghoul Patrol. I want to hear it. I want to hear the argument.
Oh, actually, never mind. It's 180. Okay, well I can see
Yeah,
why.
it's that. It's still 180, and it lost the good part, which was regenerating 6 models or D6 models for each unit every turn, regardless of whether they were by a courtier. So they literally took away half of its abilities and didn't touch its point.
And then I think the big monster one, you take multiple zombie dragons or terrorize the royal menagerie for they heal D3 wounds anyway. But you heal another D3 wounds for every unit within close.
I
Nice.
personally think Royal Menagerie is going to be big if you do the monster mesh. You need to have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can take the big boys as battle line. Anyway,
Exactly,
so
and it requires 3. So you take your battle line, and then you toss that in, and it is.
And now they're
like
healing
20 points.
2d3 every turn.
It's only 120 points.
Oh my god.
So it's
You
the
gotta be
price of a courtier.
They're
you
gonna
gotta be
be
careful when you kill, because you gotta be careful. So the only way to do it is you gotta kill them, but you gotta be careful because they'll bite.
they're gonna be solid C tier.
Gristlegore, I think, is going to be real. They're really nasty.
If you take a Porn Ghoul King on whatever of the two at the Royal Menagerie, and then you got your behemoth slots filled out, you got your battle lines. At that point, just add whatever. Done.
Yeah.
The best part then is you can just summon everything else.
Oh god, no! I forgot that's the. Oh shit!
Wayne's Wayne's over here like, well, our ability, we cast a few spells and we roll 10 dice, and for every if we roll at least 1 2 up, we win the game. And but you know what? I don't think they're that broken. I think they're gonna
They
be
were
like,
bad before. They're not that bad good now. It's
eh,
all
Exactly.
fine.
everything's gonna be all right.
I'm glad you agree.
Wayne Wayne will go off to Adepticon and win it, and he'll be like, I got lucky. They're not that good.
But yeah, don't forget the summoning. I think the summoning is the nasty part.
I mean, you get the
Yeah,
summoning for free thanks to the new terrain piece. So,
well, only for the ones on foot. The ones on the mount have a different name for their command, so it doesn't benefit from that.
oh well, at least something. I mean, it could if they got it free too, that would be the worst
Well,
scenario.
that's because
Yeah, but
the,
just take the authority.
the dragon can't sit on the throne, so he can't use it.
Right.
He didn't try hard enough.
It's got to be somewhat realistic. I mean, come on, guys. Now, what exactly does the terrain piece do? I don't know much about the throne.
So the throne, the Charnel throne. Let me pull it up. So basically, what it does is it's like most terrain you get now. You set it up wholly within your territory, within 12 inches of battlefield. or the edge of the battlefield more than 1 inch from any objective. What it does is your Flesh Eater Court's units treat it as having Inspiring, which I believe is the +1 Bravery.
It's right next to it on the right side. There's the
Oh,
rune
is it?
key.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, +1 Bravery, and then everything else treats it as Sinister. So subtract 1, and then the big part, an Abhorrent Archregent that is within 1 inch of this terrain feature can use Summon Imperial Guard command ability, which isn't the 40k version, as though somebody tried to run that joke.
Yeah, you bring in your Lehman Russes and
Right.
I was about
nice.
to say, we get that please, a battalion, yes?
Yeah, but that's Astra Militarum, remember?
Loyal
Oh,
32
right,
for
right,
Age of
right.
Sigmar confirmed.
There's no such thing as
Right.
Imperial Guard anymore.
Right. But yeah, so Imperial Guard is the one that basically you pick 20 ghouls, or serfs, but that's the ghoul keyword, 3 knights, so 3 flayers or 3 horrors, or any courtier. So basically you get to pick one of each, whichever one you want you can summon.
You only got 1 serf unit?
Yeah, ghouls are the only serf unit.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
weird.
but the crazy thing is
The only
the
Bretonnian
range at which you can summon, where you can place them on.
Yeah, they can go on any board edge, normal
Yeah,
summoning.
within 6 inches of any board edge. So objective, anything like Star Strike, you're going to be zoned out from being within 6 inches because it's in the center. But other units are there; you can charge into them. But it's just that mobility where you can put a little bit of a threat, especially against shooting armies. If they don't have a screen around the board's edge or anything, you're going to be able to threaten that or a back objective.
Now, what do you think is the best thing to summon with it?
It completely depends, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah, so it could pretty much be a Swiss Army knife, just whatever you need at the time.
Yes, and it's each Abhorrent Archregent. So people are already throwing around taking like 5 and putting them by the throne and summoning like 1,200 points stuff.
I hope that gets fact, only because it doesn't make much sense to have multiple archregents sitting on one throne.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, if it's just 1 per turn, is still a lot of points.
Yeah, I mean, it's also the Abhorrent Ghoul King can use Summon Men at Arms, which is funny because it's bolded, so it's a keyword. So it would technically affect the mounted ones, but they don't have that command ability.
Huh.
Weird.
Summon Men at Arms is the one the foot has. It summons 10 ghouls. So it's not much, but hey, you throw out 10 ghouls on the side, and hey, there are 10 ghouls here that are gonna sit by an objective in the back or something.
Yeah.
Hey, deal with these guys.
Yeah. It's free wounds that your enemy has to chew through in order to get an objective. I mean,
It's 100 points free. So
Yeah.
I mean,
And if he doesn't deal with it, you can still fill it up the unit, right?
no.
No, that's
Can't
right.
go
That was Ghoul Patrol. My bad. Yeah.
Yep, that was Ghoul Patrol, and that got taken out.
well, you can't have everything.
Yeah. You could, though, for example, put them in the back and go against, tie up a ranged unit or something. Or at
Yeah.
least be in position to. So it's, hey, you need to kill these 10 ghouls.
That must be why. The change to Ghoul Patrol is why Wayne thinks that Flesh Eater Courts aren't going to be that good. That must be it. That one thing.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's.
I never used Ghoul Patrol. I used it once.
It just changes the way you play it. But they definitely got more tools. They were solid before, but you had to spam. The dice for summoning.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, depending on how you build, you can build a myriad ways, and you could just bring. You could pretty much tailor your list as you go, as you play. I mean,
Yep.
that's probably one of the biggest advantages of summoning.
Plus, it's also good because the book in general, you have a way to play. You can play a horde army, you can play a very elite army, or you can play kind of like big brute monster units that regenerate. Just a lot of regeneration. There's a lot of flexibility, which is really good. So it's an all melee army, but there's a couple of shooting attacks, but it's an all melee army that has a lot of different options. It's not just this is a different type of unit you charge in and hit with like Khorne has.
Yeah. The summoning that Death is capable of, and Flesh Eater Courts now by extension, it makes me jealous as a Chaos player because it seems like they almost do it better than Chaos, which were the the summoning progenitors, if you will, of the game. So I'll be interesting. I mean, with the Corn Battle Tome coming out soon, I'll be interested to see how they maybe improve summoning. But I think Chaos's issue right now is they kind of a lot of the demons kind of do the same thing. I mean, you summon plague bearers to sit on objectives, and you could summon bloodletters to kill things, but everything else is kind of redundant.
Yeah, which is why they're re-releasing a lot of that. I'm fairly certain because just the gap in what the old armies can do, especially the chaos ones, compared to what the new ones can do.
I think the best summoning we got right now is Slanesh, if I'm not mistaken, shortly followed
Uh,
by Nurgle. So yeah,
Uh, as far as demons
and
go,
Nurgle, yeah, and Nurgle relies on that named slug riding dude. I forgot his name, Slimux or something.
Slimix.
to get
Yeah,
another
it's
trait. Yeah.
either him or don't summon at all for them.
Okay.
Well, you can. It's just harder to rack
Yeah,
up the
well,
contagion point.
you need those trees right up front, and I think he places one or two.
He places one and you get one normal.
Right, that's it. Yeah, so he does it because he amplifies it. I think by 2 turns of summoning or something. So
You just
yeah,
you get like a D3. So
Excellent. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of the old books getting updates now. I know Iron Jaws is waiting. Silverneth is probably due, although they're pretty okay where they're at. Although I thought Corn was kind of okay where they were at too, but they're getting a new book soon. So I'll be interested to see how a lot of these older tome armies and the tomeless armies stack up once they get their love coming out. But the tomes kind of seem to be all over the place because Daughters of Cain was good. Night Haunt seemed good, but ended up not being as competitive as people wanted them to be. Flesh Eater Courts is good. Legions of Nagash is good. Skaven seems okay. So it's kind of, the power levels seem to be kind of all over the place. But uh,
yeah,
uh,
Night Hunt, in my opinion, is good. It's just more difficult to run the ghosts effectively in Night Hunt than it is with Nagash. So
yeah,
it's
Legions of
easier.
Nagash made a lot of Death armies redundant. So Wayne, what are your final thoughts on the book as the resident player?
My final thoughts are the book was long overdue. I feel it gave the army the buff that it needs, whether or not it's as broken as we're suspecting or not suspecting remains to be seen. But overall, as a Flesh Eater player, I am very happy with what they did. It's flavorful. I especially love that you can build the multiple options, like we said before. You can go all monster, you can go all elite, you can go, hey, here's 200 ghouls, have fun.
Yeah, it really seems like the people who really enjoy army building and really like thematic armies, it definitely seems like a good book for them to pick up and start playing for anybody who might be interested in getting into Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, the other good part about it is it for such a limited army, it's got enough flavor. I mean, the whole army is literally made up of 3 or 4 kids.
Yeah, it definitely like it's funny that you brought that up because I'm sitting here thinking about it and I'm like, man, for an army with only like 4 or 5 kits, I feel like there's so many options. Like there's armies with tons and tons of kits that don't enjoy the kind of flexibility that this army seems to have right now.
There is, and I mean, especially when you consider that the Crypt Flayers as a unit is literally them deciding, hey, you know what? Let's put Vargeist wings on a Crypt Horror and call it a new unit. I mean, it's genius.
I mean, I can't argue with you there, man. I mean, it seems like flesh eater courts are like they're like that army. They're like using leftovers to make dinner the next day. Like and it just
They really
works.
are.
And it just tastes better the day after because you take such a small amount of options that and without really adding much, you can make just so much from what you got. It's pretty astounding, really, that a book this good was able to be made with such a limited number of units. I'm very impressed by this book. I think it's kind of the example of what a tome should be. I know there's a couple other tomes like that as well. I do think some are better than others, but I think Flesh Eater Courts really does a good job of making the best of what it's got.
I agree. And the other really good part I like is, other than the Vargulf, which is sadly still in cast, it's literally buy the Start Collecting set. And whenever somebody asks, "Oh, I want to start Flesh Eaters, where do I go?" Buy 5 Start Collectings,
Yeah,
and you're pretty much good.
that is such a good thing for the game too, though, honestly, because it's the one. I've always said this too, since Star Collecting Boxes became a thing, since Age of Sigmar became a thing. The Flesh Eater Court Star Collecting Box is by far one of, if not the best, Star Collecting Boxes because it literally gets you everything you need to start playing the game. It's got good rebuy value. It's a good value monetarily, and you can send a new player there to pick it up, and they'll have everything they need to start playing. Whereas some Start Collecting Boxes, some of them didn't even have an HQ choice, so you can't even really legally play a game with them. So
Um,
I'm very impressed.
I think all currently available Start Collecting boxes have HQ or hero, but and that's the funny thing, the Caradrons don't have a battle line.
Um,
Yeah.
Malignant.
Isn't
Oh,
the
right, no,
realm
they
the
don't have a hero. Wait, isn't the Coven with the vampires a hero? Or is it
I mean,
That you can assemble it as a Bloodseeker Palanquin, or you can assemble it as some Mortis engine. But there's a Necromancer on there too, so it comes with a Necromancer model that you can make a Necromancer.
that's true.
yeah,
You could pop him off and
there you
make a
go.
necromancer, but it's not
You can
like
make a Kieran Wraith too, I think.
that.
Wait,
That Star Collecting Box isn't even an actual army, though. Like, I mean, I guess technically now it would be Legions of Nagash, but
yeah,
at the time, it was a motley assembly of nothing. It was two now Nighthaunt units and the Mortis engine, which should have been Nighthaunt but never was, or a
Mm-hmm.
or a
and the
Vampire Count
Necromancer.
unit. So it was definitely odd.
Yeah, and the Necromancer is a dead walker or death mage, something like that.
Yeah, Death Mage.
Yeah, they picked
So
them the
yeah,
Deadwalkers.
kind of
Yeah, so
mixed
it's
bag.
but that just goes to show that the direction that GW's going in is pretty good in general with writing the new tomes and the new rules. Is that instead of just reintroducing a ton of new models that you have to buy or a ton of new things, they'll say, all right, you have 3 units, a couple heroes and monsters, and you can play them multiple different ways, kind of like what Legions and the Gash did,
I
like what Gloomspite Gets did.
I do like that a lot, and I liked with Gloomspite Gets, since you brought them up, how they took uh, because they had split off so many factions at the start of Age of Sigmar, and it never really made sense. It's nice to see them kind of folding them back into each other, the ones that make sense. So it's been kind of good to see that. I'm kind of hoping moving forward that we see Everchosen and Slaves to Darkness rolled in. I'd like to see Bone Splitters and Iron Jaws kind of rolled in, and then you could start seeing these nice cohesive armies that don't really need releases. They just need rules, and it's a good way to kind of get these armies out the door with minimal overhead. It's good from a business perspective, and it's good for people who have either owned these armies, owned these fantasy models, and now want to use them, and it's just good for everybody involved. I feel like I like this direction a lot. I wish 40K would take a few of the things that Age of Sigmar does right and start employing it into that game as well, because much to my dismay, they don't seem to take any of the good parts of Age of Sigmar, and the few parts they do take tend to be the ones I don't care for much. So, all right, well,
Yeah, I think HMR is the experimental one, so we'll see how it goes for 40K.
yeah, I mean, use Age of Sigmar as a petri dish. Take what works. I mean, why have it? Why have this test bed where you can throw so many ideas around, and largely to much success because Age of Sigmar is doing very well right now. Um, have all this success and then not use it in your flagship game. It doesn't make much sense. But hopefully, moving forward, we see more tomes like this, and I would like to see codexes kind of take on the form of what the tomes are in Age of Sigmar. I would like to see 40K armies with special special army-wide rules, like things like Gloomspite gets, where they've got the moon that moves over the battlefield, or Nurgle's Cycle of Decay, Khorne's Blood Tith, all that stuff coming back. I would like to see all that stuff make its way into 40k, because I feel like it would give a lot of the armies a lot of flavor, and I think that's where Age of Sigmar really beats 40k right now, is the amount of flavor you can pack into each army. You Every book can stand on its own. It's packed with flavor, and you can really get invested in that army. Whereas on the other side of the fence, right now it's just a mash of soup, and nobody's really got a solid identity. You've got a few special rules here or there, but I think 40k would definitely benefit from having these very flavorful uh, armies come about, in much the way that tomes have helped Age of Sigmar kind of find an identity in all of its forces. I think that would be a good idea moving forward.
Um, I mean, it kind of is a codex to codex thing. Just like take for example Tyranids. They do work well. They have a very distinct army personality across the board for all models. Um, and yeah, I mean they kind of have what you described there. Although I know with Imperials and Chaos specifically, the soup really takes that out of the pot
I
for me.
know. I do agree about Tyranids. Tyranids were always one of my favorite books on the other side of the fence. I think even Tyranids, though, could find uh, uh, it's kind of an overarching rule like they would have in Age of Sigmar. Like I can imagine in Age of Sigmar, there would probably be something involving biomass, and every time you kill a unit in combat, you can get termagants or something like, I don't know. It'd be something cool, something very flavorful.
I would like something like that. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be cool.
yeah, it'd be
Give
cool.
me, give me the digestion pools, then I'm happy.
Yeah. So, does anybody else have anything for the good of the court? The good Ghoul King Waniac over there. Do you have anything for the good of the court?
No, I mean, I think we covered everything. I'm very happy with the army. I
Very
just need to
happy.
assemble another. See, I think I assembled another two more, so I need six more players.
You heard it here, folks. Waniac is very happy with his solid mid-tier army.
Exactly.
Rob, I know you'll probably be facing them a bunch moving forward, because it seems like a lot of competitive players are picking up Flesh Eater courts, so you'll probably have a lot to report on the competitive scene.
Oh yeah, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to be another top tier army. I think it's an answer for a lot of what's out there, and just the flexibility is very strong. And to hit the support heroes and summoning and courtiers and stuff, you're going to need shooting.
Yeah,
So the hordes of witch elves and hordes of ghosts aren't going to cut it anymore, because you have killer hordes that can multiply their power twice in a row and regenerate, whereas Daughters of Cain don't regenerate. They hit hard.
excellent. Yeah, I mean, whenever the meta shifts, that's always a good thing for the game. It's always nice to have a nice,
Yeah,
fresh meta. So,
yeah, definitely the thing to look out for is I think that flares and horrors are pretty good, especially when you throw, like, you have a pool of wounds and then you throw unholy vitality on it. They're going to be able to tank out witch elves because they're not going to get mind razor. I'm just speaking from a meta perspective at tournaments and stuff. They're not going to be hit hard by bravery debuffs, or they're not, because I base bravery 10. They're not going to be getting that 2 damage mind razor. And the rend, yeah, the rend from the witch elves attacks will hit them hard, but you get your buffs off on your guys, and they're just going to be able to either shrug off a third of all the wounds at least, well, plus the death save. They're going to be able to shrug off a lot of damage and hit back even if they die, like especially if you take the monsters. So
yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree that they're going to be strong moving forward, and I'll be interested to see where the meta ends up. I'll really be looking forward to the lists that are run. Hopefully, I can get an army up and running soon so I could join you at some of these events. I think that'll be a good time. Um,
yeah, Skaven will be good too.
yeah, on that note, I think we're going to wrap it up for today, fellas. This was a great discussion. We're all pretty happy with where the Flesh Eater Courts book ended up. So, that was a nice little look at the inside of the book for any of you out there that are maybe thinking of picking up Flesh Eater Courts. They're anywhere between Waniac tier and top tier. So you have good things to look forward to as far as the book is concerned. Our next episode is going to be 40K related. Hopefully by then we'll have some Chaos Space Marine news. So that'll be something to look forward to. The next Age of Sigmar episode will be after that, and we'll be looking at the Skaven tome, much in the same way we looked at the Flesh Eater Quartz one today. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming out to another episode of Cast the Dice. Again, I'm Joe with Wayne, Rob, and Karaman. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.